I'm Betsy Green, Executive Director of the Georgia Youth Science and Technology Centers. I am so happy to introduce you to our organization and the wonderful work we do. For 31 years, GYSTC has been the leading nonprofit advocate in Georgia for excellence in science, technology, engineering, and math education at the elementary level. We advocate for our hardworking Georgia teachers with ongoing professional development training so they can maintain the highest skill levels to prepare our children for success. We advocate continuously for quality science education for Georgia children and their families with year-round activities for kindergarten through 8th grade students. Our reach is statewide with special focus on those children and communities who are underserved and need us most. We are enthusiastic and we are creative. GYSTC programs are available so entire communities can come together around science-based exploration, education, and fun. Today, I'd like to share one such program we are most proud of, Georgia Discover Camp. As you will see, it's a learning camp with a science twist. Any Georgia student can participate and every Georgia student will enjoy what we have in store. Please take a look.
We are so excited that you've joined us this week on our excursions across the state of Georgia. We've seen some great places, and today we're going to take another look at Providence Canyon and talk about destructive forces. I'm Lynn Larson, the Director of the Strategic Initiatives for the Georgia Youth Science and Technology Center. Today we're going to start off by reading a book. The name of the book is Iggy, Peck, Architect. As we read, I want you to think about why we would start our lesson today on a book about destructive and constructive forces, but more importantly, what does this have to do with Iggy, Peck, Architect? So I'm going to take the book cover off because it makes it easier to read. And Iggy, Peck, Architect is written by Andrea Beatty. So let's listen and learn from Iggy Peck. And if you notice, Iggy has all kinds of cool tools for measuring, and those are the tools that architects use a lot. All right, Iggy Peck, Architect. Iggy Peck, young Iggy Peck is an architect, and he has been since he was 2. When he built a great tower in only an hour with nothing but diapers and glue. "Good gracious, Ignatius," his mother exclaimed. "That's the coolest thing I've ever seen." But her smile faded fast as a light wind blew past, and she realized those diapers weren't clean. "Ignatius, my son, what on earth have you done? That's disgusting and nasty. It stinks." But Iggy was gone. He was out on the lawn using dirt clods to build a great sphinx. When Iggy was 3, his parents could see his unusual passion would stay. He built churches and chapels from peaches and apples, and temples from modeling clay. At dinner one night, to his father's delight, Iggy got a bright gleam in his eye, and out on the porch built the St. Louis Arch from pancakes and a coconut pie. Dear Ig had it made until 2nd grade when his teacher was Miss Lila Greer. On the very first day, she had this to say: "We do not talk about buildings in here. Gothic or Romanesque, I couldn't care less about buildings, ancient or new. She said in her lecture about architect that it had no place in grade 2. That might seem severe, but she was sincere. For when she was no more than 7, she had had a great fright at a dizzying height in a building so tall it scraped heaven. On an architect's tour of the 95th floor, young Lila got lost from the group. She was found 2 days later in a stuck elevator, eating cheese with a French circus troupe. After that day, it's quite safe to say, she thought all building lovers were nuts. As a teacher, she taught that, above all, one ought to avoid them. No ifs, ands, or buts. As you might guess, it would cause Iggy stress to hear such terrible talk. But he didn't hear. He sat in the rear while building a castle of chalk. You, Iggy Peck, your desk is a wreck. Tear down that castle right now. You will not build in here. Is that perfectly clear? Do you need to see Principal Howe? No, ma'am, Iggy said. He lowered his head and his heart sank down to the floor. With no chance to build, his interest was killed. Now, 2nd grade was a bore. After 12 long days that passed in a haze of reading, writing, and arithmetic, Miss Greer took the class to Blue River Pass for a hike and an old-fashioned picnic. They crossed an old trestle to a small island nestled in the heart of a burbling stream. But they no sooner passed than the footbridge collapsed and Miss Lila Greer started to scream. We're trapped here. Oh my, alas, kids, goodbye. Her eyeballs rolled back in her head. She dropped to the ground with a vague groaning sound. Luckily, fainted, not dead. The class was amazed. They stood there quite dazed, uncertain of what to do. But one bright young man was off hatching a plan, which started with Miss Lila's shoe. Soon, each lad and lass there at Blue River Pass was working together as one. And when she came to, Miss Lila Greer knew that something quite brave had been done. She looked in the air and saw hanging there a structure with cables and braces. And on the far side, beaming with pride, were 17 smiling young faces. Boots, tree roots, and strings. Fruit, roll-ups, and things, some of which should not mention, were stretched ridge to ridge in a glorious bridge dangling from a shoestring suspension. It all became clear to Miss Lila Greer as she crossed that bridge over the stream. There are worse things to do when you're in grade 2 than to spend your time building a dream. Now, every week at Blue River Creek Elementary in 2nd grade, all the school kids can hear along with Miss Greer, how the world's greatest buildings were made. The weekly guest speaker, in T-shirts and sneakers, talks of buildings from Rome to Quebec. Of course, he's the guy who builds towers from pie. That brilliant young man, Iggy Peck. So, the book is pretty cool, don't you think? So, Iggy wants to be an architect from the beginning. He starts out building when he was just 2, and he builds with anything he could possibly find at home. So I want you to start to think about towers and how towers have to survive every day when we walk in a building that's, even if it's just 2 stories high. What do architects have to do to make sure that we are okay when we walk in those buildings, and what do architects have to do in order for those buildings and towers to survive earthquakes? So right now we're going to take a short look, or we're going to take a look at a short video from Emily Strickland.
Good afternoon. My name is Emily Ann Strickland. I am a regional coordinator for Georgia Youth Science and Technology Centers. My office is located at Georgia Southwestern in Americus, Georgia. Today we're at Providence Canyon, and we're going to look at Iggy Peck Architect, and we're going to create some structures, and we're going to also talk about constructive and destructive forces on the earth. So today what we have looked at, we've looked at Providence Canyon, and we've seen a picture of an earthquake. Providence Canyon has occurred very slowly over time, and earthquakes are very sudden. What we're going to do today is we're going to build this structure, and you're going to take your 30 toothpicks, your 30 marshmallows, and you're going to design a structure. Then we're going to take this nice gelatin, and we're going to shake it and see if our structure can survive.
So, in our video, Miss Emily talked about destructive and constructive forces. And she talked about what happens quickly and what happens slowly. So, we're going to really look at destructive forces today, and we're going to talk about earthquakes and how earthquakes are a quick destructive force. Whereas Providence Canyon, where we went on our field trip, is actually a very slow process and has taken many, many years to form the canyon. So we're going to talk about structures, and we're going to talk about structures that can withstand a force. So I want you to look at our supplies, like Miss Emily talked about. She says we have some gelatin, and we have 30 miniature marshmallows. Now, if you have the large marshmallows, that is perfectly fine. Just know that you may not be able to get all 30 combined and get your structure to shake in your container, okay? And you are going to need Jell-O, which is already made. Now, let's talk about the Jell-O a little bit. This is a clear gelatin. This is has no flavor, has no sugar. It's just a gelatin. Now, if you have Jell-O that your mom makes and you all eat, that is perfectly fine. You can make that in a container and you can use it for this experiment. I would not eat it. Once we use it for the experiment, I would probably just throw it away. And the other thing is, if you use sugar-free Jell-O, it won't be sticky. Sugar Jell-O, regular Jell-O, actually is sticky and makes a bigger mess than clear gelatin, which has no sugar, or sugar-free Jell-O, okay? So, remember in our book, at age 2, Iggy started building. He wanted to build. He wanted to be an architect. So, can you imagine where he might go as he gets older? All right? So, in 2nd grade, he saved his class when they went on a field trip and the trestle to the island collapsed, and he had to figure out a way to get them back to the mainland. When he was figuring that out, he had to make sure that he was building a structure that could hold the people and get them back to the mainland. So it's what I want you to do right now with our challenge is I want you to look at your 30 toothpicks and your 30 marshmallows, and I want you to take a piece of paper. Architects always start out with a design. I want you to quickly sketch on whatever kind of paper you have at your house, doesn't matter. I just kind of want you to sketch what your design may look like. Remember, we're building a toothpick tower out of marshmallows and toothpicks, and we're going to make an earthquake happen with our gelatin, and we're going to see if your tower withstands. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is take a couple of minutes and sketch what your tower might look like, and then we're going to build them. Okay, so take a few seconds to do that, and you will quickly figure out that Miss Lynn is not an artist. Miss Lynn is definitely science-minded, and I do not draw very well, so we are just going to see what happens here. I think I did that one the wrong way, of course, but it is good. So I have a platform, and then I have triangles coming up. So we're going to see what happens. So I'm actually going to take my marshmallows, and I am going to design this, and we're going to see if my tower will withstand an earthquake. Now, if you don't have gelatin and you want to do this activity at home and your mother's like, we're really not going to waste our Jell-O, I completely get that, trust me. You can use sand. You can use sand and put it in a little container and shake the sand, or you can use modeling clay. You can put modeling clay on the bottom of a dish or a plate, and you can see if it will withstand your structure, hold your structure. And another thing, instead of using marshmallows, if you want to try this repeated number of times, and instead of using marshmallows all the time, you can take modeling clay or Play-Doh of some kind and just pinch you off a little bit, about the same size as the miniature marshmallows, and you can use this instead of marshmallows, and you can reuse this a lot. When you use marshmallows, just be aware, when you use these marshmallows, once again, I told you I wouldn't eat the Jell-O, I also would not eat the marshmallows, okay? But they get very sticky, and if they've been hot, they're really going to be sticky. So you want to build your structure that you have sketched. And we're going to see, Miss Lynn's going to see if I can build mine. Sometimes I can put it on paper and then I cannot actually build the model because my mind doesn't think that way at all times. But we're going to see what happens here. So I have my bottom foundation. Okay, I have the bottom foundation. So we're going to take this now, and I'm going to put a toothpick in each corner. Actually, I did opposites this time. And we are going to take a marshmallow and do this. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And I just want you to build or draw if you're not finished drawing. And if you don't have all your supplies with you now, you are welcome to do this later. Just make sure you upload it to our website or to our Facebook page so we can see what kind of towers you all were able to build. Now, Miss Lynn's going to go a little bit crazier here and see if I can put actually another toothpick and a marshmallow here. So you don't have to use all of your supplies, and as you can tell, I still have some left, and we may go back and add something to this one. And this one may not stand up at all even to begin with. We'll just have to wait and see. But you can tell I built just this little structure, and this is kind of what my diagram looks like, even though you may not be able to tell that that's what it really looks like. But we're going to put our Jell-O, we're going to put our structure on top of our Jell-O. And then we're going to simulate an earthquake. When you simulate an earthquake, the only thing that you're doing is shaking the container. And my structure is withstanding our shaking. So this has a good foundation. Now, you can continue, and if you do, like I said, if you don't want to use Jell-O, you can use sand. And so we're just going to stick this in here, and then we're going to shake it. And guess what? It still withstands our force of an earthquake. All right, so now I've made a mess because that's kind of nasty after I've put it in the Jell-O and then in the sand. Before we started this morning, some of my colleagues and I, we built some structures, and I want you to look at what we were able to build, and then I want you to think about what your structure looks like, and then how might we reconstruct? Because guess what? Sometimes an architect builds, designs, they make a model, test the model doesn't work. So if the model doesn't work, then they have to go back to the design portion and redesign and then rebuild. So that's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at a couple, and then we're going to have to figure out, did they follow the directions? Did they use 30 toothpicks and 30 marshmallows, or less than that? And did they build a base that would hold the structure? So let's take a look. We have several. We're excited. All right, so here's one. It's kind of a little abstract looking building. Here is another one. It's similar to the one we built just a second ago, but it is a little taller and has a few more, is more structurally sound because it has more toothpicks. And then we have another one here that is a pyramid. And then we also have another pyramid. And I'm trying to make sure y'all can see all of them. So and this one is leaning. I don't know that it's going to actually fall yet. It might fall when we put it, we simulate our earthquake though. So let's take a look, and let's start with the one that is kind of abstract, okay? This one actually, we built it earlier, and it did not withstand my shaking to begin with, so we went in and added some toothpicks, and we went in and added a little more stability to it. So now we're going to see what happens with our Jell-O. What happens with our tower? What happens when we, it fell. So guess what? This one is still not structurally sound because the shaking of the earthquake just made it topple over, okay? It's withstanding a little bit now, but as the magnitude of the earthquake gets stronger, it will fall, okay? So remember, when we're building buildings, when we're building structures, structures have to be able to withstand magnitudes of earthquakes. In cities like Los Angeles and places, you have to think about all the reinforcements that go into the architectural planning before a building's even built So it will withstand the earthquakes that are of high magnitude. And when I say of high magnitude, anywhere from about a 4 on up. 4s will cause windows to break and that kind of thing, depending on the epicenter of the earthquake. Okay, so this one actually fell, so we will go back and look at it in just a second to see if there's something we can do to it to make it withstand a magnitude, a higher magnitude. All right, so let's take a look at our pyramid. All right, so here's our pyramid. We're going to stick it on our Jello and we're going to shake. And it withstands our magnitude, our earthquake, of about a 6 magnitude, okay? All right, and we're not going to put this one in the sand because the sand is sticking. And then we built another one that's kind of structurally sound. Let's see, this one may topple over though because it is not, yeah, if you had a bigger, you can see it bouncing, so it would actually fall if the container was bigger. The container sides are actually helping the foundation of it stay and not turn over, not deconstruct. All right, so let's look at this one. Now, how many of you remember the rules? The rules were 30 toothpicks, 30 marshmallows. So one of my colleagues built this one and then decided, oh, well, I didn't use all the marshmallows, but I used all the toothpicks plus some. So let's see what happens to our triangular building, okay? I'm hoping it's going to stand up a little bit. Okay, and it falls over. All right. So let's take a look at this one. We have our design, okay? We have our design, and our design is that we have a triangle, okay? Now, this one is pretty big, and you know, I said my colleague used more toothpicks than what we originally started with, but we need to think about how we can make this better. So if we have this design, we might say we can use 30 marshmallows and 60 toothpicks, okay, and see if our building will work. We counted these and I think we said there were 48 toothpicks already, okay? But it's got to have some stability. And one way that you can make it more stable is to add reinforcements. And architects would do this, but they would go back and change their blueprints first, their designs. They would have to go in and change their design before they actually changed their building, okay? So we're going to see here if we can make this one a little sturdier. I'm not sure because having some trouble here making her, and you can see I'm making it all crazy. So now we've also talked about some other things. You know, our activity says 30 miniature marshmallows, 30 toothpicks. Would the design change, or would the stability of the building change if you were to use half large marshmallows and half minis? Somebody said, what about the flat marshmallows? You know, what could we do with our design to make it better, make it more effective, okay? So let's see if I can, I'm going to push some of these together a little bit. The design is not quite as pretty as it was. I'm so sorry that I haven't kept it absolutely beautiful. But let's see. All right, so we've altered it a good bit here. So let's see now if we shake our tower, see if it does any better. And it may be top heavy now, but it is standing up and it is not falling over. So we do have, after we went in and redesigned a little bit, even though it's a little different, we took the top floor off and made it part of the third floor instead of having the fourth floor. So now it is more sturdy and the architectural design is more stable. Okay, so there are marshmallow towers. Now I told you that you could also use Play-Doh, okay? And you can use any color of Play-Doh you would like. You just need to pinch off a little bit, roll it, try to make it as smooth and as round as possible, and then you can build your structure from this. Then when you're finished, you can take it apart and you can use the Play-Doh for another activity, which is the cool thing about using clay, because you don't want to leave, well, you won't leave it out because you don't want it to dry. So I am just going to try to build something really fast here to see if I can make a difference, or if it makes a difference using does the Play-Doh versus the marshmallows have any difference? And the answer is it should not. Doesn't have to do with the binder, the marshmallow or the clay. It has to do with the stability of the toothpicks, how many toothpicks you put in and how stable it is. So I just did something really, really simple right here. So we just built a triangle with a base, and if we put it on and we shake, it will definitely move around. All right, so we're going to take this back out and we will just roll some more, and we'll continue building our structure and see what happens. Just like Iggy Peck, just built and built and built. Architectural design is fun. So one day you may decide as a career that you want to be an architect. So if you love to build things now, and if you love to draw designs, you may be interested in being an architect. And especially if you draw those designs and then you build the models that go with them, because that's what architects do. Build and try things out. Okay, so then we are going to go another level up, which might be a mistake. You never know. You don't know until you try. So we're going to connect them all with one Play-Doh ball on the top. So we have a tower. And my Play-Doh is sticking to the table. All right, so here's our tower now. And let's see what happens, because I see a couple of places where it might need to have some reinforcements before I even start to shake it, okay? So, but it works, okay? So we redesigned and we added to, and our design continues to work. Now, at all times, our designs do not always work. Just know, as you can tell, some of ours did fall until we put some reinforcements with them, okay? So you want to test your towers, take some pictures, and, you know, send them to us so we can see them, all right? So as we finish our lesson today, I want you to go back and think about the beginning of our lesson, which was at Providence Canyon, which is a destructive force that has occurred over a really long period of time. So with our activity, we created a destructive force over a quick period of time. So I want you to now, in just a second, we're going to show our students at Providence Canyon and what they built and how they improved their designs. We do appreciate you joining us today for day 3 of the Discover Georgia STEM Camp. Tune in tomorrow at the same time as we learn about soil texture.
Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to test their structures and see what happens. So who wants to test? Okay, you want to test first? All right, so put your structure on top of the gelatin. All right, so here we go. And hers withstood it.
Good job.
Way to go. Please withstand it.
Mine's not.
Please withstand it. Please withstand it. And the gelatin has gotten so warm, it's kind of...
I wanted yours to fall, so mine's not.
Okay, yours withstood it. Yay!
Good job.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah.
All right, it withstood it. Okay, so now let's put it in the... Let's try some sand.
Can I try?
And
Can I jiggle it?
Samantha made up this sand for us, and
But I didn't know you were going to use it until you told me this morning.
it's got a little bit of, she put water in it and some peat moss. So,
Place it in.
place it in.
Ah, there we go. You do.
Oh, up.
Oh no.
So hers fell
Oh, mine's
in the
gonna fall real
sand.
hard. I don't know. It's kind of staying tall. Oh.
All right, it fell over, but the structure was sound. It didn't fall apart.